Welcome back, everyone. Right now, China's communist leaders and political elite are gathering for day 2 of the 20th Party Congress. Xi Jinping opening the event on Sunday like he has in the past, laying out his nationalistic vision for the country's future. But this year is like any other because after 10 years in power, Xi is poised to be selected for an unprecedented third term as party leader. It is a watershed moment for modern China and, as Selena Wang reports now, one that was years in the making.
From a nation of farming villages to sprawling metropolises, in recent history, no country modernized as rapidly as China. And in just one decade, no person has changed China more than its supreme leader, Xi Jinping. His image inescapable, his thinking indoctrinated in school children. His key message, make China great again. But above all else, obey and follow his lead. When he took control of the Chinese Communist Party in 2012, there was hope that the relatively low-key leader would make China's economy and society more liberal. But Xi had a different vision, restore the country to its former glory, with his Communist Party firmly at its center.
Xi Jinping sits on top of the party sits on top of China, and China sits on top of the world. That's basically the program.
Xi's China is investing heavily in new technologies, infrastructure, rapidly modernizing the countryside, and the military. He's reasserted party control over business and society, building the world's most sophisticated surveillance state, quashing people's freedoms during the pandemic with brutal lockdowns. Xi Jinping crushed dreams of democracy in Hong Kong, oversaw the internment of up to 2 million Uyghurs and other minorities in Xinjiang in what Beijing claims are vocational training centers. He's amping up intimidation of Taiwan, vowing to reunite the democratic island with the mainland. China tells its people these actions are long overdue. Fueled by the narrative that after 100 years of subjugation by foreign powers in the 19th and 20th centuries, China is finally assuming its rightful place in the world. Anyone who disagrees is blamed for trying to undermine China's rise and quickly censored or even jailed.
Here he is going back to his mythical vision of Chinese history when China was the greatest civilization and the rest of the world just followed the leadership of China.
That framing has ripple effects around the world. China no longer believes it needs to play by American-led international rules. When the U.S. tries to take China on in trade, technology, or human rights,
so that simply reinforces the sense of China under siege from Western powers. I think it has a visceral, emotional appeal in China.
The country is building its own multilateral institutions that are friendlier to autocrats. China grows ever closer to Russia, unified by a common foe. In Xi Jinping's China dream, the country is glorious and strong, with the Communist Party ruling 1.4 billion people and shaping a new world order. Selena Wang, CNN, Hong Kong.
And I'm joined now by Stephen Jiang, CNN's Beijing bureau chief, and also senior international correspondent Will Ripley, who's standing by in Taipei. First to you, Stephen. 24 hours later, how has Mr. Xi's speech been received? What's your read?
Well, Michael, in this country, the speech can only be received in one way, with resounding support and enthusiasm, as we have seen, at least publicly from state media and social media, by everyone, students in school, priests, Buddhist monks, and even grooms and brides at weddings. But of course, as we were talking about this yesterday, this opaque system means reading the speech is also like reading tea leaves. We talked about how him pausing a few times during a speech to clear his throat and sipping water got noticed, drawing attention on the issue of his stamina, because that's important in the system of one-man rule, as it's requiring him to make a growing number of decisions, big and small, on both domestic and international fronts. But of course, people have also been diving deep into that 2-hour speech and noticing one of the words he has used the most often was struggle or fight. He talked about fighting COVID, fighting corruption, fighting separatists, and without naming the U.S., fighting unilateralism and hegemony. This is, of course, an indication that he's unlikely to back down from any of his hardline positions and policies, including on zero COVID. And another phrase he used got people's attention was how he said China is now entering a phase of strategic opportunities and risks with growing uncertainty. Because in the past, both he and his predecessors has always said China is entering a phase of strategic opportunities. So the new phrasing would undoubtedly generate a lot of discussions, debate. Is he implying that in terms of assessing the external threat environment, China is actually going to moving resources, reallocating resources more towards a long-term war footing as China anticipates a risk or growing risk of conflict or even war? Michael?
Yeah, good to have your analysis, Stephen. Thanks for that. Will Ripley, as we've discussed, Mr. Xi made clear in his speech his view of Taiwan's future, and independence is not in it. What has been the reception to the speech there?
Well, China keeps saying, Michael, and Xi Jinping said it yesterday, that peaceful reunification with the island that they've never controlled since the end of China's civil war. This self-governing democracy has been running its own show for more than 70 years. They've evolved into this democratic system, and their people, more than 23 million of them, elected the leaders that Beijing calls illegitimate. And Beijing's communist rulers, while they lay claim to this island, you would be hard-pressed to find anybody here who believes that the rulers in Beijing have rule over their lives. Now, does it mean that people want, a war with China? No. A lot of people, the majority of people here, continue to want to maintain this status quo where Taiwan basically looks and acts like a country without calling itself that, or at least without most of the world calling them that, because of, Beijing making sure that the only officially recognized China is Beijing, and yet they continue to have their own military, their own democracy, and they continue with life as is. But that might be difficult. But it's hard to imagine, Michael, when people hear, they've just reopened the borders, they're going to have a major, LGBTQ pride coming up in a matter of weeks, something that would basically be unthinkable in China, both open borders and the pride thing, because, we've seen what happens to ethnic and sexual minorities and feminists in the mainland. They're basically absorbed and silenced, whereas here, those differences are celebrated, and there's a more color in the streets here. There's also less order, and of course Xi Jinping has made order his priority. But you look at the polls, Michael, and not too many people here would willingly just reabsorb with the China that they're seeing right now, certainly with the rolling lockdowns and the military intimidation, frankly, doesn't really faze people here because they've been dealing with it their whole lives. So even as China has stepped up intimidation, people are aware that someday there might be a conflict, and they just say they'll be ready to defend their way of life.
Yeah, deal with it when it comes. Will, thanks for that. Will Ripley there in Taipei, Stephen Jiang in Beijing for us. Appreciate it. Thank you both.